Did you get your free language gifts of the month yet? Download them now before they expire in the next few days. First, the top 25 questions you need to know cheat sheet. This PDF gives you 25 questions all beginners need to know for conversations. Download it now. Second, practice writing greetings for absolute beginners. If you're learning the language and still don't know the greetings, that's a problem. And this PDF workbook helps you master all the greetings. Just print the PDF and practice writing them out. Third, spring words beginners should know. Chances are you don't know enough words to talk about spring. So this bonus lesson will teach you how to say spring, windy, rainy, and much more. Fourth, top 15 phrases for spring break. Want to talk about your spring break plans? This 1-minute lesson teaches you how to say stay home and relax, travel abroad, and much more. And finally, looking for an app that actually gets you speaking? The innovative language learning app skips the random vocab drills and teaches you through real conversations between real native speakers. And all you have to do is press play and follow along. Download it for free on Android, iPhone, and iPad. To get your free gifts of the month, click the link in the description below and download.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about how to use by the time with future perfect grammar structures. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing I want to do in this lesson is talk about future perfect tense. I want to review this grammar point. So we use future perfect tense to express an action or a condition that will continue into the future, or it will end or complete at a point in the future. So future perfect tense relates to future points in time. When we make future perfect tense sentences, we follow this pattern for the basic future perfect structure. We have subject plus will, have, and the past participle form of the verb. This makes a simple, positive, future perfect tense sentence. So, I will have eaten, or she will have slept. These make future perfect sentence structures. When we use won't, we create a negative future perfect tense sentence. So, she won't have eaten, or he won't have slept. So we use this as the base for our future perfect sentence. To mark a continuing action, however, so a future action continuing into the future, we can do that with this sentence structure. We use subject plus will, have, and then been plus the ing form of the verb. So, for example, she will have been eating, or he will have been sleeping, and so on. To make this structure negative, we put won't before have been. So again, he won't have been sleeping, or she won't have been working. So we use this to mark actions in the future that are continuing, or that we expect will continue. The last structure I want to introduce is the question structure. So with future perfect tense questions, we start with a question word, and it's kind of more common to use questions like these, like how much, or how many, or how long. We use these kinds of question words at the beginning of our question patterns. To continue, we then use will plus our subject in this position, and then have and the past participle verb form to make a basic question, a basic future tense question. Or if we want to make a continuous question, we end it with have been verb ing. So, how long will he have been something something ing? Or how much will she have something something? So, we can use this pattern to make questions with future perfect tense. So, we're going to see some examples of these later used together with the by the time expression. Okay? So, with this in mind, with this grammar refresher in our mind, let's look at by the time, and then let's look at how we use these grammar points together. So, by the time is the focus expression for this lesson. We use by the time to express that an action or a condition will end, complete, or change by a certain point. The action will end, complete, or change by a certain point. So we can use by the time in the past or in the future. In today's lesson, we are focusing on using this with future expressions, so future perfect tense expressions. So we know that by the time is talking about some action or some condition that is going to finish, right? It's going to end or it's going to change. So what does this look like when we put this together with future perfect tense? Reminder, we use future perfect tense to talk about an action that we expect is going to end at some point in the future or is going to continue into the future and maybe continue after a certain point in the future. So what does this look like with by the time and why is it important? Let's take a look at this timeline here. So we have the past here, present is here, this star, and the future is here in this direction. So for today's grammar, we're looking at this point here. We're focusing on the future. So our first grammar point, future perfect tense, is here in red. Yeah, this wavy line is the future perfect action or condition. This blue point here in the future is the by the time point. So what I hope this shows is that the future perfect action continues, yes? So if this is now, right, this current moment now, future perfect is expressing an action that is going to continue into the future. Maybe it started in the past, or maybe it started in the future, that's okay, depending on the sentence. But we want to note the action is going to continue into the future, and then it may change or stop or complete at this by the time point. So this by the time point marks something of significance, yeah? So depending on what we want to communicate, there can be lots of different things that by the time tells us, okay? So let's look at some examples of these 2 points together and see why they're important and how we can use them to talk about our future plans, okay? So let's look at some examples. Future perfect plus by the time. Here's the first example sentence. By the time I graduate from college, I will have studied in schools for 16 years. By the time I graduate from college, I will have studied in schools for 16 years. So let's break this sentence down. First, we have the by the time expression. So here, by the time I graduate from college. So this point, graduating from college, is our key point in the future. This is a future moment, a future point in time here. Then our future perfect portion is this. I will have studied in schools for 16 years. I will have studied in schools for 16 years. So that means this action in total will be 16 years at this point. So why is this important? Right now, the speaker or the writer is expressing this idea in the present, yeah? So that means the speaker has not graduated from college yet. The speaker is going to graduate in the future, right? So by the time I graduate from college, this will be true. That means this is not true now, right? So maybe now the speaker has studied for only 15 years or 14 years or something like that. They want to mention this point in time, this future point in time, and the total time studied from the beginning until this future point in time. This is what we can do with by the time and future perfect tense together. We can talk about future points in time and their relationship to our past continuing experiences. Okay, so let's look at another example of this. Here, we will have been waiting for 3 hours by the time the plane arrives. So once more, we will have been waiting for 3 hours by the time the plane arrives. Okay, so first you might notice that this sentence swaps or switches the order of the two ideas, right? We have the future perfect part at the beginning of the sentence and the by the time part at the end of the sentence. This is totally fine. It's up to you what you want to emphasize here. In this sentence, we have this waiting at the beginning of the sentence. It has a little more emphasis. So this expresses we will have been waiting for 3 hours. So this is our continuing action, yes? And our by the time condition or our by the time situation is here. By the time the plane arrives. So here's the present. The speaker is talking in the present about this future point. By the time the plane arrives, our total waiting time will be 3 hours. So that means maybe now we have been waiting for 1 hour or maybe 90 minutes or something like that. But to talk about this specific point in the future, the total time in the future will be 3 hours. So we use this future perfect tense structure and our by the time structure to communicate this. It's like saying the total time in this future moment will be this 3 hours in this case. Okay? So let's look at one more example sentence, and then I want to talk a little bit about some interesting grammar that we see in these examples. So let's look at this next one. By the time he quits his job, he will have been working for that company for 10 years. Once more, by the time he quits his job, he will have been working for that company for 10 years. Okay, so in this sentence, we have our by the time at the beginning again. So here is our future point. By the time he quits his job. By the time he quits his job. So he has not quit his job yet, but he's planning to. That's what this sentence communicates. He has not quit his job yet, but he's planning to. And here is our future perfect information. He will have been working for that company for 10 years. So this condition will have continued for 10 years. So at this future point in time, the total will be 10 years of this condition. So maybe now it's only 8 years or 9 years. But we want to talk about it in reference or in relation to this future plan by the time he quits his job. Okay? So I hope that this gives you a good understanding of what we can use these 2 points together to do. Let's talk about a couple interesting grammar points now. Maybe you've noticed here in these by the time sections right here in blue, there's kind of interesting grammar, right? So they start with by the time, by the time, by the time, and then we have the subject, right? So I or the plane or he, right? Notice then the verb form that's used. So I graduate, the plane arrives, and he quits. So a couple things to notice here. Even though, or although, we're talking about a future point, we do not use will or going to or an ing verb here. We don't use any kind of future tense verb in this position. You can use this instead in the same way you would use a present tense verb, right? The very, very basic present tense verb conjugation. I graduate. It arrives. He quits, right? So we do not need to use a future tense expression here. For example, sometimes I see learners use by the time I will graduate from college, and this is incorrect. Or by the time I'm going to graduate from college, also incorrect. We don't need to use, and we should not use, a will or going to or something like that in this position here. So after your subject here, just use the verb form in the same conjugation you would use for a simple present tense structure. Okay, the second point that I want to talk about is a common question that comes up about by the time. And the question is, can we use when in the same way as we use by the time? And the answer is sometimes. So by the time and when can sometimes be used in the same position to create grammatically correct sentences. However, it can change the feeling of the sentence. So let's look at an example. I'll show you what I mean. Let's look at this second example sentence here. We will have been waiting for 3 hours by the time the plane arrives. If we replace by the time with when, the sentence becomes, we will have been waiting for 3 hours when the plane arrives. So this doesn't have the same kind of feeling of continuing action or some kind of total action, total time waiting in this case. It's sort of more like a report of something that happened, like when the plane arrives and we will have been waiting happened kind of at the same time. It doesn't have that same feeling of something that happened or that continuously happened leading up to this point in time. So let's take a look at another example sentence here. If we change by the time out and use when instead, the sentence becomes, when I graduate from college, I will have studied in schools for 16 years. So this also, we have no communication problem here. We understand what the speaker is saying. When I graduate from college, I will have studied in schools for 16 years. But because we don't have this by the time here, we don't have that same feeling of kind of building up the years of study. We don't have the feeling of lots and lots of work contributed to this one point in time. So the when use kind of gives a feeling of just two things happening at the same time. The by the time expression gives us more of a sense of something that was continuing for a long time, or maybe something that we worked on for a long time. So if you want to communicate that kind of nuance, that kind of feeling, I would recommend you use the by the time pattern instead of the when pattern. Okay, so with that said, let's take a look at our last example sentence for this video. This one uses a question pattern. Okay, so let's look. By the time you move to your new house, how long will you have lived in this city? By the time you move to your new house, how long will you have lived in this city? Okay, so here is our by the time expression. By the time you move to your new house. So this is a future point in time, an expected future point in time. By the time you move to your house, and then we have a question. How long will you have lived in this city? How long will you have lived in this city? So the speaker is asking a question about this period of time. The speaker doesn't know how long this arrow is. So the how long question asks the total duration of time here. So they could say, oh, I will have lived here for 10 years, or I will have lived here for 5 years in this city. So that makes the length of this line 5 years, right? So again, when we're using this by the time structure, we're communicating this idea of something that's kind of a collection of experiences maybe, or it's something that we had gathered over time, like experiences. So we couldn't use when you move to your new house, how long will you have lived in this city, and communicate the same feeling. This by the time kind of shows that there's more than just this one moment, right? It's kind of like a recognition of many different past experiences, if that makes sense. So this is how we can use a question in one of these by the time patterns, okay? So I hope that this lesson helped you understand how we use by the time together with future perfect tense to talk about future situations, future actions, and their relationship to our continuing actions in the past. As I said earlier, yes, we can use by the time in other tenses, like with past tense, for example, but maybe I can talk about that in a different video. So if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example sentences with this information, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you like this lesson, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this video, I'm going to talk about 8 ways to use the preposition for. Let's get started. Okay, the first use is purpose. So we use for to express the purpose or the use of something. We can use this to talk about places, the purpose of a place, the purpose of an object, and so on. So let's look at some examples. First, this textbook is for my science class. So here, for is before my science class. In this sentence, this textbook, our subject, matches with my science class. So we show that the use or the purpose of the textbook, the thing that the textbook is used for, or the thing that the textbook is used to do, is my science class. In this case, we're not talking about an action, we're talking about an object and the thing the object is used for, the thing that the object is used to do. So in this case, to study for my science class. Okay, let's look at another example. The conference room is for meetings. So here we have for before meetings. This shows the purpose of the conference room is meetings. This is another way to understand this sentence. Again, we have our subject here, the conference room, and the part following for, which shows the use of the subject. So we can kind of think of these two parts of these sentences as kind of a pair, kind of matching. So the thing and the thing that it is used to do. Okay, one more. Here's an idea for a new product. Here's an idea for a new product. So this sentence is expressing a new product as like the purpose of the idea. So we can think of this in like brainstorming sessions as well. So when you think of, in this case, a new idea or a new concept, you are sharing your concept and the purpose of that concept at the same time. So here's an idea for a new product. So this is expressing the purpose of the idea or the use of the idea in this case. So these are some different ways that we express the purpose or the use of something with for. Okay, let's continue to the second use of for this lesson. The second use is duration. So duration means length of time. Let's look at the examples here. First, he has lived here for 6 years. He has lived here for 6 years. So please note, when you use this for, you need to use the plural form of the, in this case, years that follows. So when we use our time measurement, like year or hour, minute, second, and so on, we need to use the plural form here, as long as it's not one. Of course, if it's 1 year, we need to use just the singular form. But generally, we need to use the plural form in sentences like these that express a duration of time, a length of time. So we cannot use to here. He has lived here 6 years is incorrect. For is used to talk about the length of time. Let's look at the next example sentence. They talked for 2 hours. They talked for 2 hours. Again, we have for before our duration, our length of time, and we're using the plural form, 2 hours. Okay, so they talked for 2 hours. This means their discussion was a 2-hour time period. That was the duration of their talk. Okay, one more example of this. We waited for about 15 minutes. We waited for about 15 minutes. Here we have for before about 15 minutes. So if you want to make a guess or express something close to this time, you can use about in this position. Don't put about before this. We waited about for 15 minutes. No, don't do that. Put it before the duration of time. We waited for about 15 minutes is perfect. So we can use for to talk about duration as well. It's usually very clear when we are using for to describe duration because there's this kind of length of time expression after the preposition. Okay, great. So let's continue to the next use of for. The next use of for, number 3, describes a status or a condition. We use this for a lot when we want to express an emotion that we feel but for someone else. So sometimes we feel, happy or sad or excited about someone else's news, and we use for to express that. So let's break down these example sentences. First one, very, very common expression. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you. So this sentence means I feel very, very happy because of something that happened in your life. So we do not use to express this. Sometimes I see learners say something like, I'm so happy to you, but we do not express it in this way. We say, I'm so happy for you. You got a new job, I'm so happy for you. So expressing with for you shows that you care about the other person's condition or status. You have this emotion and you want to express it for that other person. Use for to do that. Let's look at another example of this. This is great news for the company. This is great news for the company. So again, we have kind of this status or this condition. Something happened. This is great news for the company. So in this case, we want to express this condition is true for this organization in this case. So maybe the CEO says this. This is great news for the company. So this means that this condition or this status is something that we want to make clear is for this, like kind of the destination of this feeling or this condition is the company. So it's not me, but it's the company. I feel this way, but it's about the company. So we use for to do this. Again, not to. This is great news for the company. Okay, one more example of this. The lecture was hard for the students to understand. The lecture was hard for the students to understand. So in this situation, here is kind of the status or the condition, maybe the opinion in this case. The lecture was hard. And here we have for the students. So that means in this case, maybe the lecture was not hard for the professor, or the lecture was not hard for the teacher. But we want to, again, show this condition should be applied to this group, in this case, the students. The lecture was hard for the students to understand. Maybe the lecture was easy for another professor to understand, but we want to focus on this group here. We use for to do that. The lecture was hard for the students to understand. So again, this use, number 3, to express a status or condition is something that we do when we want to express like an opinion or a condition or an emotion, and we want to be specific about the person or the organization or the group of people that we want to apply that emotion to or that condition to. Okay, so with that in mind, let's continue on to number 4. We're going to change the feel a lot with number 4. Number 4 is old-fashioned because. So yes, this is an old-fashioned use, and we don't use this so much in everyday communication. However, you may see this and you may hear this in media and in stories. It is still used, especially in older stories that are still very, very famous stories. So let's take a look at some examples and see how this is used. So first one is a sad one, but he remembers that day, for it was a sad day. He remembers that day, for it was a sad day. In this sentence, we can replace for with because, and the sentence stays the same. He remembers that day because it was a sad day. Okay, so here, for 100% replaces because, but the difference is that this sentence sounds much more old-fashioned. We would not say this sentence in everyday communication now unless we want to express a kind of old-fashioned or maybe very dramatic feel. So this is 100% the same meaning, but just sounds older. Let's look at another example. They walked home quickly, for the night was cold and dark. So here we have, they walked home quickly, for the night was cold and dark. Again, we can just replace for with because, and the sentence is the same. They walked home quickly because the night was cold and dark. This is a much more natural sentence in today's modern English, but using for here makes it sound older, much older. Okay, last example. She went into the town, for she had many errands to attend to. She went into the town, for she had many errands to attend to. Again, exactly the same as because. She went into the town because she had many errands to attend to. So I wanted to include this because even though we don't use it so much in everyday communication now, we do still see this from time to time, and you might think, for? Is this about purpose here? And this expresses the same meaning as because. So if you like watching old movies, you might hear this expression quite often, so keep an ear out for it. And of course, if you like to read old books, you will probably see this a lot. So that's what it means. Okay, let's continue to number 5. Number 5, I think, is a pretty easy one to understand. We use for to express the recipient of something, the person who gets something or the person who receives something. So let's look at the examples here. The boy drew a picture for his mother. The boy drew a picture for his mother. So here, for comes before his mother. She is the person who received the picture. So it's like saying the reason someone did something is for giving it to this person or in order to give it to this person. We describe the recipient with for, or we preface the recipient with for. Next example, I bought this coffee for you. I bought this coffee for you. So again, we have for before the person receiving. So in this case, the coffee. Oh, I bought this coffee. Okay, great. For you. So we can do this to express who is receiving something. One more. Flowers for me? How nice. So we can also do this to talk about ourselves when we receive something. In this case, the person receives some flowers. Flowers for me. So that's this part right here is expressing, oh my gosh, I'm the recipient of the flowers. We're expressing some surprise here with this. For me, oh my gosh, how nice. So we do use this for to express the recipients of things. This is just one way to express this giving and receiving type of pattern. Of course, there are many ways to express that someone gave something or received something. This is just one pattern you can use to talk about this giving-receiving relationship. Okay, great. Let's continue on to number 6. Number 6 is also, I think, a pretty easy one to understand quickly because it uses numbers. We use for to express prices and rates and sales and discounts, these kinds of things. So let's look at some examples. First one, I got this shirt for $20. I got this shirt for $20. For is before the price of the item. In this case, I got this shirt for $20. Another way to say this is, I bought this shirt and the price was $20. But for $20 is a very quick and short way to say it, yeah? Okay, let's look at the next example. This is an example of a discount expression. The electronics store is having a 2-for-1 sale. The electronics store is having a 2-for-1 sale. Here is the 4 I want to focus on. This is an expression that you might see in any kind of store you can imagine, actually. A 2-for-1 sale, maybe 3-for-1, I don't know. But this means you can get 2 objects, in this case markers, in this example, 2 for the price of 1. So this means if a marker costs $1, you can get 2 markers for $1. So you can buy 2 items for the price of 1 item. We express this very quickly with 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 and so on. So this expresses the price of an item or the discount rate in this case. Okay, let's look at one more example. The hotel gave us bags for free. The hotel gave us bags for free. So when something costs $0, when something costs nothing, we express that with free, right? Something is free. When you want to talk about something you received for no money, you use for to do that. We got this for free. She got that for free. So use for to describe those things that cost nothing as well. So you can use for in this way to talk about prices, rates, sales, and so on. Okay, great. Let's move on to the last 2 points for this lesson. The last 2 points I want to talk about are kind of more grammatically focused. So it's not so much about the meaning, but rather the grammatical purpose of the preposition. So we use the preposition for with gerund. So if you don't know what a gerund is, that's when you take a verb, you take the verb and you use it in the ing form, but you use it as a noun. When we do this, we use for before that word. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Let's look at some examples. Here's one. This part of the computer is for storing data. This part of the computer is for storing data. Here we have for plus storing. Storing, so to store means to keep something, like in a computer, data in a computer. So we use this for ing pattern. You might also know the infinitive pattern, something, something, something to verb. That's a very common thing that we maybe run into questions about. Should I use the infinitive form? Should I use the gerund form? And one error I sometimes see is learners try to mix the two. They say like, for store data or to storing data, something like that. So the rule is please use for with gerund. So don't try to mix like for store or to storing, something like that. Make sure when you're using the gerund form here, you precede it with for. Let's look at another example. A sharp knife is important for cutting vegetables. A sharp knife is important for cutting vegetables. So here is my gerund for cutting vegetables. And we have for before this, okay? So a sharp knife is important for cutting vegetables. So another point that I want to make is that we can sometimes use either the gerund form or the infinitive form. And depending on the verb, we can choose between the two. Sometimes both are totally fine to use. Sometimes you need to use one or the other. And in those cases, in the cases where you can choose either one, it's up to you. But you kind of may tend to notice that these sentences they have kind of the feeling of explaining something to someone. So we maybe don't use these so much unless we want to kind of teach someone how to do something, or we're describing the steps in a process like these two. We're teaching someone about computer maybe building or something like that. Or in this one, we're talking about how to cook something, or maybe basic cooking techniques. So you might find that these are used a little bit more when we're instructing someone. So it's a little bit more professional maybe, or a little bit more polite. So depending on the situation, you may also hear some different people making different choices with their grammar. But just be aware of the differences between the two, and that sometimes we can use both the gerund form or the infinitive form. Anyway, let's continue to the last one. GPS tags are used for tracking wild animals. GPS tags are used for tracking wild animals. Here's tracking, for tracking. So tracking, to track something, means to regularly check the position of something. Like on your phone, right? You can do GPS tracking of your position, hopefully at any time. So GPS tags are used for tracking wild animals. Again, we have kind of this feeling that someone is explaining something new to us with this sentence. So this is one very, very common use of for. Again, this is a more grammatically focused use of for, so we don't need to think about it so much like a specific meaning, but a general feel that we have when we're using it in front of a gerund is that we're talking about the use of something, and we're kind of explaining that use of something, sometimes to someone who's learning for the first time. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go to our last very quick point, number 8. I wanted to include some questions, some key questions that use for to ask about the purpose of something. So, for example, this is a very common one. What for? What for? This question means why. So for example, if someone asks you for something really strange, like they say, hey, can you buy me a drill at the store? You might think, what for? So a drill is something that you use for construction projects. And you might think, what? Why? Another way to ask that question is, what for? This is kind of like saying, what is the purpose of that thing? Or for what purpose do you need that thing? So these are different ways that we can ask that why question. It's also kind of like saying, what are your plans for that object? So if someone asks you for something surprising, you can respond with, what for? So you want to know more about what they're going to do. So there are a couple of other patterns that we commonly use this with. So generally, you might hear this what something something for type question, and we can substitute a couple of different phrases in the middle here. But I want to introduce two that are very, very common. The first one that follows this pattern is, what do you need that for? What do you need that for? So again, in the drill example, it's like, what do you need that for? So what is the reason that this is necessary for you? You're asking for the purpose, some kind of explanation. And another one, a past tense one, what did you do that for? What did you do that for? So in this case, it's a past tense thing. We're surprised by someone's actions. What did you do that for? Tell me the purpose of that action. What was the purpose of that action? So you might see these what something something for questions, and these are asking for a reason or a purpose for something. So this is another way to use for. All right, that is everything that I want to cover in this lesson. We talked about many different meanings, and we also looked at some grammatical uses of the word for. So I hope that you got a good refresher about how to use this preposition. But of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example sentences, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, don't forget to like this lesson and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this video, I'm going to talk about 6 ways to use the word as. Let's get started. Okay, the first use I want to talk about is to show the role or the purpose of someone or something. We often use this as before job titles or other roles in our community, in our company, or in an organization. We can also use this as to express the way we use something or the purpose of something. Let's look at some examples. First, a job example. He's been working as a salesman for about 6 years. He's been working as a salesman. So this as comes before the job title. And in this case, we have our article before salesman. He's been working as a salesman for about 6 years. So we do this to show the person's role. We do the same thing in our second example sentence. She was hired as the new creative director. She was hired as the new creative director. So in this case, we have as the new creative director. So this is the job title, creative director, and we have new to show it's a new position or a new role. We also have the here. So the shows that there's just one creative director. She was hired as the new creative director. As comes before all of this. This is one phrase expressing this new role. Okay, now let's look at this use of as to talk about a purpose. So this room can be used as a meeting room or as a break room. This room can be used as a meeting room or as a break room. So in this case, we are talking about the purpose of a room. So a multi-purpose room. We can use this room for many different things. In this case, we can use this room as, so for the purpose of a meeting room, or as a break room. So this shows the different functions or the different purposes. So we can use as in this way to express our roles, our jobs, and the ways that we use different things. Okay, so with this in mind, let's continue to use number 2, which is quite different. Use number 2 is as to mean while or to mean at the same time. So in this case, we have 2 things occurring at about the same point in time, and we want to express that. So first example here, they arrived as we were leaving. So these 2 actions are they arrived, past tense, as we were leaving. So this means maybe we're in the process, or we were in the process of leaving. We were still there, but we were just about to go. So we connect these with as to show that these 2 situations or these 2 actions happened at about the same time. So we can think of this as kind of like while or at the same time. Let's look at the second example. The fire alarm started ringing as we sat down in the restaurant. The fire alarm started ringing as we sat down in the restaurant. So again, we're showing 2 actions happening at about the same time. So the fire alarm started ringing at the same time as we sat down at the restaurant. So we use as to do this. Please note we cannot replace as with while here. For example, the fire alarm started ringing while we sat down in the restaurant. We wouldn't use it in this way. While we tend to use with progressive actions that are happening at the same time. So we tend to use while when we talk about 2 continuing actions happening at the same time. We're seeing in these situations, in these cases, we have a simple past tense action and a progressive action. Same thing here, a simple past tense action and a progressive action. So we don't use as and while in exactly the same way, but they do communicate the same feeling of 2 things happening at about the same time. Okay, let's look at the last example. She smiled as she walked across the stage. She smiled as she walked across the stage. So in this case, we have, again, a simple past tense action. And in this one, the second part, we also have a simple past tense action. So in this sentence, we might hear some people using while in place of as in she smiled while she walked across the stage. That's because these parts match in terms of the grammar, in terms of the tense used. But me personally, I think I would probably still use as in this case instead of while, because while sounds a little more natural if we use it with the continuous or the progressive form. So for example, she was smiling while she was walking across the stage. Might sound a little bit more natural. But in this case, I would use as to mean these two things happened at the same time. Okay, great. So we have our first two uses showing the role of someone or the purpose of something. And we have two things happening about the same time, or the two things happened at about the same time. Let's go to use number 3 now. So use number 3 is to express a cause and a result. So in this use, we are connecting some kind of action and that expresses the cause of something, and then we also see the outcome or the result of that thing. I want to note that this use is a little bit formal. It may even sound a little bit old-fashioned, but we do still use it from time to time, so it's important to understand this use. So let's look at the examples. First, he went to bed early as he had an important meeting in the morning. He went to bed early as he had an important meeting in the morning. So here we have our two independent ideas. He went to bed early, one, this is the action, as he had an important meeting in the morning. This is the cause of this result, okay? So we have the reason for something. You can think of this as in the same way as because, right? He went to bed early because he had an important meeting in the morning. So typically in today's English, we use because a lot in this position. But every once in a while, we maybe want to sound a little more formal or a little old-fashioned. Every once in a while, we use as to express the same idea. Again, we have this cause and result relationship. Let's look at the next example. She prepared a mountain of food as she was expecting many guests at her party. She prepared a mountain of food as she was expecting many guests at her party. So again, we have this cause-result relationship. She prepared a mountain of food. This is the result, the outcome. And why? She was expecting many guests at her party. This is the cause. So again, we can think of this as meaning because. She prepared a lot of food because she was expecting a lot of guests at her party. So as expresses the same idea. Okay, let's look at the last example for this group. They decided to move to a bigger house as they were planning to have a family. They decided to move to a bigger house as they were planning to have a family. So again, we have this result and the cause. So again, we have this because type meaning here. They decided to move to a bigger house because they were planning to have a family. So again, although we use because a lot more in today's English, sometimes people still choose to use this as to connect their ideas that express the cause and the result of something. So it's good to know this one. Okay, great. Let's continue to number 4. Number 4 is very interesting. We use this use of as to express two changes happening at the same time. So this is a bit different from point number 2. I talked about two things that happen at about the same time, two separate actions. The key here with number 4, though, is that two things are changing at the same time. For example, two things are increasing or two things are decreasing, or maybe one thing is increasing and the other thing is decreasing at the same time. The key with this use is change, and we'll also see there are some specific grammar patterns we tend to use with this type of as. So let's take a look. First one, as you get older, it gets harder and harder to lose weight. As you get older, it gets harder and harder to lose weight. So this is expressing as you get older, so as your age increases. We are talking about one change here. And then it gets harder and harder. So it gets more and more difficult. It becomes more and more difficult to lose weight. So the difficulty increases. So we're talking about one point, increasing in age as you get older, and the other thing, trying to lose weight or getting more and more difficult to lose weight. So we're expressing two changes happening at the same time. We also see this as something, comma, it gets comparative, comparative. This is another common pattern that we see with this type of as use. We'll see another example in number 2 here. So let's read it. The air got colder and colder as we climbed up the mountain. The air got colder and colder as we climbed up the mountain. So again, we have two things changing. One, the air gets colder and colder. So it means the air is becoming cold, right? We do this repetition for emphasis. The air got colder and colder is thing 1, changing. 2, as we climbed up the mountain. So we are going up the mountain, climbing up the mountain. These two things, these two changes are happening at the same time. We express this, we connect these ideas with and. So this sentence follows the same kind of pattern as the first one, but we can move this as section to the end of the sentence. In this case, I could say, as we climbed up the mountain, the air got colder and colder, and it's still 100% correct. It's up to you to choose which part you want to emphasize. Generally, the part at the beginning of the sentence is going to sound like it has a little bit more emphasis. So you can choose which position is best for you. Okay, let's look at one more example. As airline ticket costs increase, the number of people traveling decreases. So again, we have two things changing here. As airline ticket costs increase, as they go up, the number of people traveling decreases. So in this case, we have changes in two directions. Costs increase, travelers decrease. The number of travelers decrease. We express that these two changes are happening at the same time with this as pattern. So a good way to know that this is the one that's being used is that this as will come at the beginning of this sentence as an introductory clause, like this as something something, comma, that's a good hint, plus this comparative form, harder and harder or colder and colder. That's one big hint that this is the changes at the same time kind of as. So keep in mind that this one, again, is used to express changes happening at the same time. The one we talked about in number 2 expresses two actions that happened sometimes in the past, or sometimes they happened or they were happening at the same time, but not just changes. So that's the key difference between 2 and 4. Okay, great. So let's continue to the last 2 points. The last 2 points are some basic grammar review points. So number 5, we use as for comparison. So this is a very basic English grammar point, but let's review it very quickly because sometimes people, I think, forget parts of these sentences. So we use as in a couple of different patterns. We use as to express that two things are equal with this pattern. So noun A is as adjective or sometimes adverb as noun B, right? So this thing is as something as noun B. Or we can also express a comparison with a negative, not as something, okay? So A is not as adjective as B, for example. So we use this as pattern to describe things that are equal and to make some comparisons. So let's review with a couple of examples. First, your house is as big as a celebrity's house. Your house is as big as a celebrity's house. So that's like saying your house is the same size as a celebrity's house. Maybe it's really big, right? So the problem sometimes we see, I think maybe learners get a little bit confused about as and than, right? So we use than a lot when we make comparisons, like your house is bigger than my house, for example. But when we want to show that two things are equal, we use this as around our adjective, no than here, okay? So use this to express that two things are equal. Noun 1, your house. Noun 2, celebrity's house. Connect them to show they are equal with as big as, okay? Great. Let's look at a couple more examples. Second, this taco shop is not as good as the one in our neighborhood. So this is a negative, right? This taco shop is not as good as the one in our neighborhood. So in this sentence, this taco shop here, not as good, lower quality than the taco shop in our neighborhood, right? We show this relationship with not as good as, okay? Again, we have as on both sides of the adjective here. We do not use than in this sentence. Okay, let's look at our last example. The weather today is not as bad as it was yesterday. The weather today is not as bad as it was yesterday. Again, this means today's weather is not as bad as it was yesterday. So another way to express this, yesterday's weather was really, really terrible. Today's is okay. So again, we're following the adjective with as here. So as on both sides. So keep in mind that this is a very common pattern for as. Okay, let's finish off this lesson with point number 6. So point number 6, I wanted to focus on this expression, as long as, because I think it's sometimes very confusing. What does this mean? Does this have to do with length? Sometimes, yes, we can use this in this pattern, actually. Like this marker is as long as that marker, which means they are of equal length. However, we have this as long as expression, which means only if. It acts as part of a conditional expression. So let's look at some examples of this. First, as long as I save money for 6 months, I'll be able to buy a car this year. As long as I save money for 6 months, I'll be able to buy a car this year. So what does this mean? As long as I save money for 6 months. So we can understand this as only if. Only if I save money for 6 months, I'll be able to buy a car this year. That means I must do this thing. I must do this thing in the as long as clause in order to make this thing possible, okay? In order to make this main clause possible. I'll be able to do this thing, okay? So we use as long as to mean only in this case, all right? So you'll notice this comes at the beginning of the sentence, at least if this clause is first. Okay, so let's take a look at another position that we see as long as used in. 2, you can go to the party as long as you finish your homework. You can go to the party as long as you finish your homework. So in this case, we have our main clause here. You can go to the party as long as, or only if, you finish your homework. So this is something a parent might say to a child, right? So again, only if you finish your homework. That's what as long as expresses here. All right, let's finish up the last example sentence. We'll arrive at the airport on time as long as there's no traffic. Okay, once more. We'll arrive at the airport on time as long as there's no traffic. So again, we can replace as long as with only if to understand this. We'll arrive at the airport on time only if there's no traffic, right? Only in this situation, or only if this is true, right? So this is the use of as long as. We understand this as only if, and I hope that this helps you to see the different positions in the sentence that as long as takes in comparison to the comparative form of as long as. So pay attention to the location of as long as to help you understand whether it's a comparison or it's an only if construction. Okay, great. So those are 6 different ways to use the word as. They are very different. There are many very different uses of as, but I hope that this lesson gave you a good introduction to the various ways that we can put as into our sentences. So of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example sentences with the word as, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again next time. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to make embedded questions in English. Let's get started. First, let's take a look at what an embedded question even is. What is an embedded question? An embedded question is a question inside another question or inside a sentence. Embedded questions are used to make questions softer or more polite. So in this lesson, I'm going to compare embedded questions, questions that are inside something else, with direct questions. So we can see how we need to change the questions in order to make this inside type of question. So let's start by making these 2 sets. So the first one is this direct question set. So here are some samples of just very, very basic direct questions. What time does the bus leave? What time does the bus leave? Very basic question, information question, right? Or who ate my sandwich? Who ate my sandwich? Again, very simple, basic question. One more, what is the password? What is the password? These are simple, basic, direct questions. Then, let's compare this to embedded questions. So let's change these direct questions and put them inside another question or another statement. And let's take a look at what happens to the questions when we do this. So the first direct question was, what time does the bus leave? In an embedded question, for example, we could say, can you tell me what time the bus leaves? Can you tell me what time the bus leaves? So you can see this question, what time the bus leaves, is different from the direct question. What time does the bus leave? We have different word order and different words used here. We're going to talk about why this is in the middle of today's lesson. Let's look for the time being at the second example though. Who ate my sandwich in this direct form? And in the embedded form, do you know who ate my sandwich? Do you know who ate my sandwich? So here we have do you know to introduce the embedded question. And in this case, we have who ate my sandwich. No change. There's a reason for this as well. We'll talk about later. Lastly, what is the password? What is the password? In an embedded question, it might look like this. I'd like to know what the password is. I'd like to know what the password is. So again, this part, the question, what the password is, this is different from what is the password. So we're going to break down the reasons for these changes and introduce the rules so that you can make your own embedded questions. First, let's start by looking at this type of sentence. What is the password? This is an example of a direct question that uses the verb be. So to be, meaning is, or are, or was, or were. When you have a question that uses the be verb, we need to follow a certain type of rule. And that is, we move the be verb after the subject when we make an embedded question. So for example, when we saw, what is the password? We needed to change that in our embedded question. So the verb comes after the subject. This is what we see here. I'd like to know what the password is. So in this case, the verb comes after the subject, the password. This is the same rule we need to follow for other questions that use the be verb. So let's take a look at 3 more examples. First, where are the car keys? Where are the car keys? Here is my be verb. So we need to move this after the subject to create an embedded question. Here's my sample. Can you tell me where the car keys are? So here is my embedded question. I'm starting the question, can you tell me? And the basic question is here. The direct question is here with the new grammar. Can you tell me where the car keys are? So a very common mistake is learners don't move the be verb to the end or to after the subject. Can you tell me where are the car keys is incorrect. Make sure to move it to the after point, the after subject point. Okay, let's look at the next example. How long is the movie? How long is the movie? Here the be verb is. So we need to move this after the subject. Here's our sample embedded question with this grammar. Do you know how long the movie is? Do you know? Introduces the embedded question. How long the movie is. Again, we moved is from this position before the subject to this position after the subject. One more example of this. Why is the city so polluted? Why is the city so polluted? Polluted means it's filled with maybe dirt, trash, it's poor quality air, and so on. So why is the city so polluted? Again, we have this be verb here, and here's our subject, the city. So here's a sample embedded question. I wonder why the city is so polluted. I wonder why the city is so polluted. So please note, we don't move the be verb always to the end of the sentence. We move it after the subject, like we see here. The city is our subject, so we put it after the subject in this position. I wonder why the city is so polluted. Also, another thing that's important to note that you can see here is that although these are called embedded questions because there's a question inside something else, we don't always need to use a question mark at the end. In this case and in this case, we're asking a question, right? Can you tell me? And do you know? But this one, I wonder. It's like we're thinking about something. I wonder why. This is not a question, so we use a period at the end of this. So keep this in mind. Sometimes it's a question, and we should use a question mark. Sometimes it's not, so just use a period, or maybe an exclamation point. Okay, great. So this is our first point about be embedded questions that use be. Now, let's take a look at another thing we need to consider. That's when our question uses the auxiliary or the helping verb do. So we saw an example of this here. What time does the bus leave? We saw this here. Here's my verb, our auxiliary does. We changed this to, can you tell me what time the bus leaves? So in this part, you might notice there's no does, right? Why is that? That's because of an interesting rule we need to consider. So in these cases, we remove that do or does or did, and we use the verb, the other verb that's in the question. So what does this look like? Here are a couple of quick examples. Our direct question, where did he go? Where did he go? In this case, we have past tense, yeah? Did. Right? And our verb here is go, right? So to follow this rule, we need to remove this auxiliary, this helping word, and we use the verb that's in the question instead. We also need to make sure this change uses the same tense as the original helping verb. So what does this look like? Here's a sample. Do you know where he went? Do you know where he went? So do you know introduces the question. Where he went. We use went because it's the past tense form of the verb that was in the question before. We have no did here. So not do you know where did he went? Incorrect. That's a very common type of mistake I see with learners. Do you know where he went? It's the perfect way to create this type of embedded question. Let's look at one more example. What time does she start work? What time does she start work? So again, we have does here, does, all right? So we need to remove that, and we have this start in this case. We have the verb start. So what's a sample sentence here? I'm not sure what time she starts work. I'm not sure what time, so we have this part, remains the same, what time she starts work. So we have our verb here matching the tense of the sentence. In this case, this is a present tense sentence, right? So we have the present tense verb structure applied. She starts work, right? So keep in mind, we always have to use the same tense that does is used in the original question, but we have to remove that does and use that tense for the verb that's actually in the sentence. So this one can be a little bit tricky to remember. It's kind of a special grammar point, but this is how we use the do verb rule with embedded questions. Okay, great. So one more quick point about this is if you have a question like this, who ate my sandwich? There's no be verb and there's no do verb. Lucky you, there's no change. So who ate my sandwich? A question like this that doesn't have this verb or this verb doesn't require any change. We can simply use it in the embedded question as it is. Who ate my sandwich? Can be put into the embedded question with no changes. So that's the one that's easy to remember. So be and do questions are the ones you really need to think about. Okay, great. Let's move on to the last part for this lesson. Yes or no questions. So sometimes we have questions that don't have a question word, like who, what, where, when, how long, and so on. These are simple yes or no questions. So if there is no question word in the sentence, you can create the embedded question with whether or if. So if or whether. We start the embedded question with that. So what does that look like? Let's take a look at some very simple examples. Here, are they hungry? Or was he angry? Or is this vegetarian? So none of these have a who, what, where, when, why question, right? Simple yes, no. So how do we make an embedded question with these? First one, are they hungry? Okay, here's a sample question. Let's ask if they're hungry. Let's ask if they're hungry. This is our embedded question. If they are hungry. Yeah? Okay, next one. Was he angry? Was he angry? Do you know if he was angry? Do you know if he was angry? If he was angry, okay? And the third one, is this vegetarian? So meaning, is this food vegetarian? Could you tell me, introduces the question, could you tell me if this is vegetarian? Could you tell me if this is vegetarian? Oh, yes it is, or no it isn't. So keep in mind we can use whether or if, but generally if tends to sound a little bit more casual, a little bit more commonly used in everyday conversation. You may hear people using whether in this position too. Another point to consider, you might have noticed that we changed the be verb position here as well, yeah? So for example, are they hungry becomes they are hungry. And was he angry becomes he was angry, right? So we still have to change the position of the be verb here. And we add this if or whether before the embedded question, okay? So this is another important grammar point to keep in mind. With practice, it becomes easier. And there are some embedded questions that are very, very common. For example, could you tell me where the restroom is? There are some that you will use a lot, and they will become easier over time. So the very last point that I want to make is about these starting phrases here. So these starting phrases we've looked at in today's lesson. These are some examples of phrases we very commonly use to begin our embedded questions. So for example, do you know? We looked at this earlier many times. Do you know something? Or can or could you tell me? Can you tell me or could you tell me? Could will sound a little bit more polite. Let's ask, or let's find out, or let's see. We can use these as well. We saw this here. Let's ask if they're hungry, or let's find out if they're hungry. Let's see if they're hungry. So this is suggesting, let us do this thing. We want to find out some information. The next one is I wonder, I wonder. We saw this here. I wonder why the city is so polluted. So we can use this to kind of think out loud. And the last two, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We saw this here. I'm not sure what time she starts work. So we can use this to express some uncertainty. And the last one, I'd like to know. I'd like to know. So when you want to politely request information, I'd like to know what time the bus leaves, and so on. So these are just some examples. There are some more as well, but these are very, very common. So I hope that this lesson helped you understand what embedded questions are, why we use them to sound a little bit more polite or to sound a little bit less direct. And I hope that you are able to make your own embedded questions following the rules we talked about in this lesson. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some sentences with this grammar, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Expand your vocabulary with our core 2,000 words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free English ebook before it's gone. Do you know how to ask about amenities in English? Hi, my name is Alicia, and this is 3-Step English by EnglishClass101.com. In this lesson, you'll learn how to ask about amenities in English through a quick conversation. Let's look at the dialogue. Two characters are talking to each other in a movie theater. As you listen, pay attention to how they ask about the topic and how the other person responds. Do they have any vending machines here? Yeah, they're back by the entrance. I saw those, but all they had was pop. I just wanted some water. There's a water fountain by the bathroom. Thanks. By the way, we don't normally say pop here. Usually people say soda. I heard that, but keep forgetting. When I was small, my English teacher was from Ohio. Let's go over the dialogue again, more slowly this time. Do they have any vending machines here? Yeah, they're back by the entrance. I saw those, but all they had was pop. I just wanted some water.
There's a water fountain by the bathroom. Thanks. By the way, we don't normally say pop here. Usually, people say soda. I heard that, but keep forgetting. When I was small, my English teacher was from Ohio. Let's focus on the key part of the conversation. In this part of the dialogue, this person is asking this person if there are any vending machines in the place where they're talking. She does this by asking, do they have any vending machines here? When she asks, do they have, what she's saying has basically the same meaning as the phrase, is there a? However, referring to the theater as they and phrasing the sentence as though it's a person who has things rather than a place where things are is grammatically correct in English and can sometimes be the more natural sounding sentence. She ends the sentence with here, which makes it clear that in this sentence, they is referring to the movie theater that the two are in. When talking about a business or company in English, the pronoun they can be used in place of saying the full name. Let's look at the sentence pattern. This pattern is the structure that all of our examples will follow. Do or does, noun, have, noun. When we're referring to a business or group, we say, do they. The subject they is often used in a general way, especially if we don't know exactly who is in charge. But if you're referring to a singular noun, for example, a business name, you switch to does, like, does Starbucks have Wi-Fi? Let's see how a line from the dialogue follows this pattern. Do they have any vending machines here? First is do, which is used because the subject is a pronoun. Next is they, the pronoun referring to the movie theater the characters were in. After that is have. And lastly, any vending machines here? The sentence would be complete with just vending machines, which is the second noun. The words any and here help make the question more specific, but aren't needed for the pattern. In many everyday situations, do they have and is there can be interchangeable, but the nuance is slightly different. We use a do they have pattern when we're in places owned or operated by a company or government. This could be a company building, a park, a station, or a cafe. We tend to use is there or are there patterns when we're in public places, like on the street, where there's no clear owner of the surrounding space. Although this nuance exists, people can use either pattern in any location. Now, let's look at some speaking examples. Do you have a menu? Can you see how the pattern applies here? You is a pronoun, taking the place of the first noun. You is being used here to refer to both the listener that the speaker is talking to and also to generally refer to the business the listener works for. Menu is the second noun, the amenity. Next, do they have umbrellas? They is a pronoun taking the place of the first noun, and umbrellas is the second noun, the amenity the speaker is asking about. Let's try one more. Does the restaurant have a terrace? Here, the first noun is the restaurant. Since it is a singular noun, we use does. A terrace is the second noun. Another one. Does the library have a water fountain? The library is a singular noun, so we use does instead of do. A water fountain is the second noun. Let's do another. Do they have a student discount? The pronoun they is used, so we start with do. The amenity is a student discount. One last example. Does New York have a subway system? New York is not only a noun, but it's a proper noun, a specific named place. Just like common nouns, we use does here. Then, a subway system takes the place of the second noun in the pattern. Let's review. Using the sentence pattern we learned, do you know how the words should be ordered? Do. Do they? Do they have? Do they have a? Do they have a bathroom? Do they have a bathroom? Using the sentence pattern we learned, do you know how the words should be ordered? Do. Do you? Do you have? Do you have a? Do you have a garbage? Do you have a garbage can? Do you have a garbage can? Thank you for watching. Now you know how to ask about amenities in English, and now you can move on to the practice.
Expand your vocabulary with our core 2,000 words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free English ebook before it's gone.
Do you know how to extend apologies in English? Hi, my name is Alicia, and this is 3-Step English by EnglishClass101.com. In this lesson, you'll learn how to extend apologies in English through a quick conversation. Let's look at the dialogue. As you listen, pay attention to how they ask about the topic and how the other person responds. Sorry, Jack, I don't think I'm going to make it tonight. What happened? When I stepped out to meet you, it just started pouring. Think it's better just to stay in. I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm sorry, Jack. If I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you I'd join another time. It's okay. I think we're planning something next weekend. Can I keep you in the loop? Sure. Let's go over the dialogue again, more slowly this time. Sorry, Jack. I don't think I'm going to make it tonight. What happened? When I stepped out to meet you, it just started pouring. Think it's better just to stay in. I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm sorry, Jack. If I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you I'd join another time. It's okay. I think we're planning something next weekend. Can I keep you in the loop? Sure. Let's focus on the key part of the conversation. I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm sorry, Jack. If I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you I'd join another time. In this conversation, this character is apologizing to this character, Jack, for not being able to attend his event. She does this first by saying she's sorry, and then explaining further with, if I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you I'd join another time. With this sentence, she gives context for both why she can't attend and what it is she's sorry for. If I'd known it was going to rain like this shows that the reason she's not attending was unexpected heavy rain. If she had known about it, she would have been able to do something differently. I would have told you I'd join another time shows the action she could have taken and that she's sorry for not telling Jack that she couldn't attend earlier. If she had known it would rain, she would have told him. Because she didn't, she's apologizing for the inconvenience. Let's look at the sentence pattern. This pattern is the structure that all of our examples will follow. If, past perfect phrase, would have, past participle phrase. This is called the third conditional. We use the third conditional to talk about if something was different in the past and to imagine the result. We can use this to give a reason when making an apology. We form the third conditional with two clauses. In the first clause, we make an if statement with a past perfect verb phrase and use would have with the past participle to show the result. Let's see how a line from the dialogue follows this pattern. If I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you I'd join another time. In this sentence, we start with the if statement, with the phrase, I'd known it was going to rain like this. This is the past perfect phrase in the pattern. The past perfect verb in the phrase is had known, contracted with I to become I'd known. Then we have, I would have told you I'd join another time. I would have takes the would have section. Told you I'd join another time is the past participle phrase. The verb told is the past participle in this phrase. Now let's look at some speaking examples. If I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you another time. Can you see how the pattern applies here? It's almost identical to the dialogue example. I'd known it was going to rain like this is the past perfect phrase, and told you another time is the past participle phrase. Next, if I'd known it was going to be crowded, I would have made a reservation. I'd known it was going to be crowded is the past perfect phrase, using had known. Made a reservation is the past participle phrase, using made. Let's try one more. If we'd ordered another pizza, we wouldn't have gotten hungry. We'd ordered another pizza is the past perfect, using the past perfect had ordered. Here, it's conjuncted with we instead of I. Gotten hungry is the past participle phrase using gotten. By saying wouldn't have instead of would have, this shows that something did happen but would not have if they had done something else. Thank you for watching. Now you know how to extend apologies in English. And now you can move on to the practice. Expand your vocabulary with our core 2,000 words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free English ebook before it's gone. Do you know how to make a promise in English? Hi, my name is Alicia, and this is 3-Step English by EnglishClass101.com. In this lesson, you'll learn how to make a promise in English through a quick conversation. Let's look at the dialogue. As you listen, pay attention to how they ask about the topic and how the other person responds. It's a pity it didn't work out yesterday. If you want a do-over, next Saturday I'm cooking dinner for some friends. Are you in? I promise that I'll make it this time. What do you want to make? I haven't made up my mind yet. Maybe chili and cornbread? My cornbread is really good, I have to say. In that case, you'll have to teach me how to make it on Saturday. I promise to teach you all I know. Let's go over the dialogue again, more slowly this time. It's a pity it didn't work out yesterday. If you want a do-over, next Saturday I'm cooking dinner for some friends. Are you in? I promise that I'll make it this time. What do you want to make? I haven't made up my mind yet. Maybe chili and cornbread? My cornbread is really good, I have to say. In that case, you'll have to teach me how to make it on Saturday. I promise to teach you all I know. Let's focus on the key part of the conversation. In this conversation, this person says, I promise that I'll make it this time. By saying, I promise that, she's making a promise or declaration that she will do what follows. After that is, I'll make it this time. In the context of the conversation, this means that she will make it, attend the dinner. This time serves to show that the last time that an event like this happened, she was not able to attend. So essentially, she's saying that no matter what, she will go to the dinner, unlike the last event her conversation partner held. Let's look at the sentence pattern. This pattern is the structure that all of our examples will follow. I promise that, future simple tense. The sentence structure for making a promise in English is very simple. You simply say, I promise that, followed by a future simple tense phrase. Let's see how a line from the dialogue follows this pattern. I promise that I'll make it this time. The sentence starts with, I promise that. after which is the future simple tense phrase, I'll make it this time. I'll is a contraction of I and will. The will is necessary for the future simple tense verb, will make. Future simple tense verbs are formed by putting will before a bare infinitive, like run, do, or in this case, make. You can also make promises using the pattern I promise plus an infinitive phrase. For example, I promise to teach you all I know from the dialogue follows this pattern. I promise to teach you all I know. To teach you all I know is a phrase made from the infinitive to teach. Now, let's look at some speaking examples. I promise that I'll study. Can you see how the pattern applies here? I'll study turns to I will study, with will study as the future simple verb. Next, I promise that I'll teach you. Will teach is the future simple verb here. Let's try one more. I promise that I'll win the contest. Will win is the future simple verb, followed by an additional detail, the contest, to make a longer phrase. Another one. I promise that I'll wash the dishes for a month. Will wash with some extra context for the full phrase. And another. I promise that I'll come back. Will come back is the future simple tense phrase here. One last example. I promise that I'll remember a gift. I will remember. Thank you for watching. Now you know how to make a promise in English. And now you can move on to the practice. Trying to learn English but still can't speak? That's because you're missing one of 3 crucial steps. These are 3 steps to mastering and speaking English with confidence, and that's how you learn at English Class 101. You learn with quick conversation lessons by real teachers, you get to practice what you've learned, and you get tested for total mastery. So sign up for your free lifetime account at English Class 101. Click the link in the description. Do you know how to ask about amenities in English? Welcome to 3-Step English Practice by EnglishClass101.com. In this lesson, you will practice how to ask about amenities in English. Let's look at the main dialogue. 2 people are having a conversation. Do they have any vending machines here? Yeah, they're back by the entrance. Here, instead of, are there any vending machines here? This character asks, do they have any vending machines here? This is because when asking about amenities, using do they have can sound more natural than asking is there. Let's practice with this grammar more in this lesson. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? You have a menu? You have a menu? Do. Do. Do you have a menu? Do you have a menu? Do is used here because it matches the pronoun you. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? They have umbrellas. They have umbrellas. Do. Do. Do they have umbrellas? Do they have umbrellas? Do is used here because it matches the pronoun they. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? The restaurant have a terrace. The restaurant have a terrace. Does. Does. Does the restaurant have a terrace? Does the restaurant have a terrace? Does is used here because the restaurant is a singular noun, not a pronoun. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? The library have a water fountain? The library have a water fountain? Does. Does. Does the library have a water fountain? Does the library have a water fountain? Does is used here because the library is a singular noun, not a pronoun. Unscramble the words to make a sentence. Do. Do they? Do they have? Do they have a? Do they have a student? Do they have a student discount? Do they have a student discount? Unscramble the words to make a sentence. Does. Does New York? Does New York have? Does New York have a? Does New York have a subway? Does New York have a subway system? Does New York have a subway system? Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? Do they have, or is there, vending machines here? Did they have, or is there, vending machines here? Do they have? Do they have? Do they have vending machines here? Do they have vending machines here? Do they have is used here because it is grammatically correct. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? Do they have, or there is, a water fountain in the back? Do they have, or there is, a water fountain in the back? There is. There is. There is a water fountain in the back. There is a water fountain in the back. There is used here because it is the response to a question, not a question. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? Do they have, or are there, a student discount? Do they have, or are there, a student discount? Do they have? Do they have? Do they have a student discount? Do they have a student discount? Do they have is used here because it is grammatically correct. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? Do they have, or there is, a restroom over there? Do they have, or there is, a restroom over there? There is. There is. There is a restroom over there. There is a restroom over there. There is used here because it is the response to a question, not a question. Listen to what I say. Is does or do the correct choice for each sentence? Does the restaurant have any bathrooms? Listen one more time. Does the restaurant have any bathrooms? Did you hear does? Does is used because the subject is a singular noun. How about, did they have food service? Let's listen one more time. Do they have food service? Did you hear do? Do is used because it matches the they pronoun. Next, does the library have free internet? One more time. Does the library have free internet? Did you hear does? Does is used because the subject is a singular noun. Next, do you have a ticket counter? One more time. Do you have a ticket counter? Did you hear do? Do is used because it matches the you pronoun. And does the bank have a waiting room? One more time. Does the bank have a waiting room? Did you hear does? Does is used because the subject is a singular noun. Thank you for watching. Now you know how to ask about amenities in English, and now you can move on to the next lesson in the pathway on EnglishClass101.com. Trying to learn English but still can't speak? That's because you're missing one of 3 crucial steps. These are 3 steps to mastering and speaking English with confidence, and that's how you learn at English Class 101. You learn with quick conversation lessons by real teachers, you get to practice what you've learned, and you get tested for total mastery. So sign up for your free lifetime account at English Class 101. Click the link in the description. Do you know how to extend apologies in English? Welcome to 3-Step English Practice by EnglishClass101.com. In this lesson, you'll practice how to extend apologies in English. Let's look at the main dialogue. 2 people are having a conversation. When I stepped out to meet you, it just started pouring. Think it's better just to stay in. I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm sorry, Jack. If I'd known it was going to rain like this, I would have told you I'd join another time. This last line with the apology is what's called a third conditional. She starts with an if, followed by a past perfect verb phrase. After that is I would have, followed by a past participle verb phrase. In other sentences, I is replaced by the pronoun of whatever would take the action described in the past participle. Let's practice with this grammar more in this lesson. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I, a taxi, I wouldn't have missed the concert. If I, a taxi, I wouldn't have missed the concert. Had taken. Had taken. If I had taken a taxi, I wouldn't have missed the concert. While both options are past tense, we need the past perfect, which is had taken. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If it would rain, I would have told you no. If it would rain, I would have told you no. Had known. Had known. If I had known it would rain, I would have told you no. If I had known it would rain, I would have told you no. To make a past perfect verb, you combine had with a past participle. Known is the past participle, so it's the correct choice. Knew is the first person singular past tense, so it's grammatically incorrect. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I would have passed the test. If I would have passed the test. Had studied. Had studied. If I had studied, I would have passed the test. If I had studied, I would have passed the test. While studied is the past participle, it needs had to be the past perfect. Just studied is not past perfect. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If we'd another pizza, we wouldn't have gotten hungry. If we'd another pizza, we wouldn't have gotten hungry. Ordered. Ordered. If we'd ordered another pizza, we wouldn't have gotten hungry. If we'd ordered another pizza, we wouldn't have gotten hungry. Here, ordered is correct because the sentence started with if we'd. We'd is a contraction of we had. So with just we'd ordered, the past perfect is formed. Otherwise, the sentence would start with if we had ordered. Unscramble the words to make a sentence. Ready? If I reservation. If I'd I reservation. If I'd known I reservation. If I'd known it'd I reservation. If I'd known it'd be I reservation. If I'd known it'd be crowded, I reservation. If I'd known it'd be crowded, I would've reservation. If I'd known it'd be crowded, I would've made reservation. If I'd known it'd be crowded, I would have made a reservation. If I'd known it'd be crowded, I would have made a reservation. Unscramble the words to make a sentence. If I'd her. If I'd had her. If I'd had her, I'd her. If I'd had her number, I'd her. If I'd had her number, I'd have her. If I'd had her number, I'd have called her. If I'd had her number, I'd have called her. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I'd left earlier, I would have joined or had joined you. If I'd left earlier, I would have joined or had joined you. Have joined. Have joined. If I'd left earlier, I would have joined you. Have joined is used here because we need a past participle phrase, not a past perfect phrase. Had joined is past perfect and not appropriate here. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I'd bought more, we wouldn't have run or ran out. If I'd bought more, we wouldn't have run or ran out. Have run. Have run. If I'd bought more, we wouldn't have run out. Have run is used here because it uses the past participle. Ran is just the singular past tense, not the past participle. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I had helped out more, we would have finished or finished on time. If I had helped out more, we would have finished or finished on time. Have finished. Have finished. If I had helped out more, we would have finished on time. Have finished is used here because we need the have as part of the would have of the conditional statement. We would finished is not grammatically correct. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I had helped out more, we would have finished or finished on time. If I had helped out more, we would have finished or finished on time. Have finished. Have finished. If I had helped out more, we would have finished on time. Have finished is used here because we need the have as part of the would have of the conditional statement. We would finished is not grammatically correct. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? If I'd finished earlier, I would have helped or would help you. If I'd finished earlier, I would have helped or would help you. Would have helped. Would have helped. If I'd finished earlier, I would have helped you. Would have helped is used here because it's in the correct tense. I would help you is grammatically fine on its own, but the tense doesn't match. Listen to what I say. What is the past perfect verb in the sentence? If I had known it would rain, I would have told you no. Listen one more time. If I had known it would rain, I would have told you no. Did you hear had known? Had known is the past perfect here. How about, if I had taken a taxi, I wouldn't have missed the concert. Let's listen one more time. If I had taken a taxi, I wouldn't have missed the concert. Did you hear had taken? Had taken is the past perfect here. Next. If I had helped out more, we would have finished on time. One more time. If I had helped out more, we would have finished on time. Did you hear had helped? Had helped is the past perfect here. Next. If I'd finished earlier, I would have helped you. One more time. If I'd finished earlier, I would have helped you. Did you hear I'd finished? I'd is a contraction of I and had, so had finished is the past perfect here. And if I had studied, I would have passed the test. One more time. If I had studied, I would have passed the test. Did you hear had studied? Had studied is the past perfect here. Thank you for watching. Now you know how to extend apologies in English. And now you can move on to the next lesson in the pathway on EnglishClass101.com. Trying to learn English but still can't speak? That's because you're missing one of 3 crucial steps. These are 3 steps to mastering and speaking English with confidence, and that's how you learn at English Class 101. You learn with quick conversation lessons by real teachers, you get to practice what you've learned, and you get tested for total mastery. So sign up for your free lifetime account at English Class 101. Click the link in the description. Do you know how to make a promise in English? Welcome to 3-Step English Practice by EnglishClass101.com. In this lesson, you'll practice how to make a promise in English with both infinitive and future simple tense phrases. Let's look at the main dialogue. 2 people are having a conversation. It's a pity it didn't work out yesterday. If you want a do-over, next Saturday I'm cooking dinner for some friends. Are you in? I promise that I'll make it this time. What do you want to make? I haven't made up my mind yet. Maybe chili and cornbread? My cornbread is really good, I have to say. In this dialogue, this character says, I promise that I'll make it this time. She does this using the sentence structure of I promise plus that plus a future simple verb phrase. The future simple verb here is will make. However, there is also another way of promising to do something, which is I promise plus an infinitive verb phrase, like to go to the store or to play some golf. Let's practice with this grammar more in this lesson. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise. Come back soon. I promise. Come back soon. Two. I promise to come back soon. I promise to come back soon. To come back soon is an infinitive verb phrase. Without will, we can't make a future simple phrase. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise. I'll teach you. I promise. I'll teach you. That. I promise that I'll teach you. I promise that I'll teach you. Since we have I will, here, we can put that in the blank and form a future simple tense phrase. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise. Remember a gift. I promise. Remember a gift. Two. I promise to remember a gift. I promise to remember a gift. Again, without will, a future simple phrase cannot be formed. To is the only grammatically correct option here. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise. I'll wash the dishes for a month. I promise. I'll wash the dishes for a month. That. I promise that I'll wash the dishes for a month. Neither a future simple tense phrase nor an infinitive phrase can be formed with I promise to I will. So we have to use that and make it future simple tense. Unscramble the words to make a sentence. I promise. I promise that. I promise that I'll. I promise that I'll study. I promise that I'll study. Unscramble the words to make a sentence. I promise. I promise to. I promise to study. I promise to study very. I promise to study very hard. I promise to study very hard. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise to, or that, win the contest. I promise to, or that, win the contest. To. I promise to win the contest. To is used here because together with win, it forms an infinitive phrase. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise to, or that, he will become famous. I promise to, or that, he will become famous. That. I promise that he will become famous. That is used here because together with he will, which could be contracted to he'll, it forms a future simple tense phrase. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise to, or that, check the numbers again. I promise to, or that, check the numbers again. To. I promise to check the numbers again. To is used here because there is no pronoun plus will afterwards that could form a simple future tense phrase with that. Choose the best answer to complete the sentence. Ready? I promise to, or that, will go far. I promise to, or that, will go far. That. I promise that we'll go far. That is used here because in combination with we will, it forms a future simple tense phrase. Listen to what I say. Which kind of verb phrase is each sentence using? I promise that I'll teach you. Listen one more time. I promise that I'll teach you. Did you hear? I'll teach. I will teach is in the future simple tense. How about I promise that I'll study? Let's listen one more time. I promise that I'll study. Did you hear? I'll study. I will study is also in the future simple tense. Next, I promise to check the numbers again. One more time. I promise to check the numbers again. Did you hear? To check? To check is an infinitive verb. Next, I promise that I'll wash the dishes for a month. One more time. I promise that I'll wash the dishes for a month. Did you hear? I'll wash. I will wash is in the future simple tense. And I promise to study very hard. One more time. I promise to study very hard. Did you hear to study? To study is an infinitive verb. Thank you for watching. Now you know how to make a promise in English with both infinitive and future simple tense phrases. And now you can move on to the next lesson in the pathway on EnglishClass101.com.
Are you ready to learn 5 new English words? This week's topic is experiences and activities. And there'll be a quiz at the end to test you on the words. So let's go. Try. Try. It's a verb that means to attempt something or test it to see if it is successful. Here's an example. Try the high ropes course. Try the high ropes course. I want to try the high ropes course. I want to try the high ropes course. I want to try the campground's high ropes course. Really? Well, just try not to look down. Let's review. Say this out loud. Try. Try. Say this out loud. Try the high ropes course. Try the high ropes course. Say this out loud. I want to try the high ropes course. I want to try the high ropes course. Do you know how to use this English word? Explore. Explore. It's a verb that means to travel or look at something new to learn or discover more about it. Here's an example. Explore the forest down that trail. Explore the forest down that trail. I'm going to explore the forest down that trail. I'm going to explore the forest down that trail. I'm going to explore the forest down that trail. Just don't wander off it like last time. Let's review. Say this out loud. Explore. Explore. Say this out loud. Explore the forest down that trail. Explore the forest down that trail. Say this out loud. I'm going to explore the forest down that trail. I'm going to explore the forest down that trail. Visit. Visit. It's a verb that means to go to a place, usually to see it, learn something, or meet someone. Here's an example. Visit the orchard. Visit the orchard. I'm going to visit the orchard at dawn. I'm going to visit the orchard at dawn. I'm going to visit the orchard at dawn. I hear the sunrise is beautiful. Don't forget a warm coat. It's freezing at that hour. Let's review. Say this out loud. Visit. Visit. Say this out loud. Visit the orchard. Visit the orchard. Say this out loud. I'm going to visit the orchard at dawn. I'm going to visit the orchard at dawn. Book. Book. It's a verb that means to arrange or reserve something, such as a ticket or a hotel, for future use. Here's an example. Book the hotel. Book the hotel. I'm going to book the hotel tonight. I'm going to book the hotel tonight. I'm going to book the hotel tonight. Hurry, or we'll lose the best rooms. Let's review. Say this out loud. Book. Book. Say this out loud. Book the hotel. Book the hotel. Say this out loud. I'm going to book the hotel tonight. I'm going to book the hotel tonight. Watch. Watch. It's a verb that means to look at something carefully to notice what happens or changes. Here's an example. Watch the city lights. Watch the city lights. I'm going to watch the city lights from the balcony. I'm going to watch the city lights from the balcony. I'm going to watch the city lights from the balcony. Just don't drop your phone again. Let's review. Say this out loud. Watch. Watch. Say this out loud. Watch the city lights. Watch the city lights. Say this out loud. I'm going to watch the city lights from the balcony. I'm going to watch the city lights from the balcony. It's quiz time. Let's see how well you remember the words from the last 5 lessons. Ready?
Try. Explore. Visit.
Book. Watch.
Great job! Follow English Class 101 for more English lessons. Are you ready to learn 5 new English words? This week's topic is thinking and awareness. And there'll be a quiz at the end to test you on the words. So let's go! Expect. Expect. It's a verb that means to believe or think that something will happen. Here's an example. Expect the cafe to be crowded. Expect the cafe to be crowded. I expect the cafe to be crowded this afternoon. I expect the cafe to be crowded this afternoon. I expect the cafe to be crowded this afternoon. Then prepare extra coffee or we'll run out fast. Let's review. Say this out loud. Expect. Expect. Say out loud. Expect the cafe to be crowded. Expect the cafe to be crowded. Say this out loud. Say this out loud. I expect the cafe to be crowded this afternoon. I expect the cafe to be crowded this afternoon. Remember. Remember. It's a verb that means to keep something in your mind or bring it back to your mind. Here's an example. Remember the new alarm code. Remember the new alarm code. I must remember the new alarm code. I must remember the new alarm code. I must remember the new alarm code. Don't you dare forget it again. Let's review. Say this out loud. Remember. Remember. Say this out loud. Remember the new alarm code. Remember the new alarm code. Say this out loud. I must remember the new alarm code. I must remember the new alarm code. Understand. Understand. It's a verb that means to know the meaning of something or how it works. Here's an example. Understand this contract. Understand this contract. I need to understand this contract before signing. I need to understand this contract before signing. I need to understand this contract before signing. Then read every line or you'll regret it. Let's review. Say this out loud. Understand. Understand. Say this out loud. Understand this contract. Understand this contract. Say this out loud. I need to understand this contract before signing. I need to understand this contract before signing. Realize. Realize. It's a verb that means to suddenly know or begin to understand something clearly. Here's an example. I realize. I realize. I realize this trip is going to be expensive. I realize this trip is going to be expensive. I realize this trip is going to be expensive. Be careful not to max out your credit card again. Let's review. Say this out loud. Realize. Realize. Say this out loud. I realize. I realize. Say this out loud. I realize this trip is going to be expensive. I realize this trip is going to be expensive. Imagine. Imagine. It's a verb that means to think of something in your mind, especially something that is not real. Here's an example. Imagine the beach. Imagine the beach. I can imagine the beach at sunrise already. I can imagine the beach at sunrise already. I can imagine the beach at sunrise already. Just don't daydream too long. We need to pack. Let's review. Say this out loud. Imagine. Imagine. Say this out loud. Imagine the beach. Imagine the beach. Say this out loud. I can imagine the beach at sunrise already. I can imagine the beach at sunrise already. It's quiz time. Let's see how well you remember the words from the last 5 lessons. Ready? Expect.
Remember. Understand.
Realize.
Imagine. Great job! Follow English Class 101 for more English lessons.
Want to boost your vocabulary so you can speak more of the language? If you're a beginner, the best way is to focus only on a special set of words, the core words, and you'll see why in just a bit. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. What are core words? So imagine this. You're a beginner. You download a vocabulary app and it starts teaching you words like economics, xylophone, and zebra. If you're a beginner, these are not exactly useful words, right? Well, that's the exact opposite of what core words are. And that's just an example of how to learn vocab the wrong way. So if you see an app teaching you that, run far, far away. Core words are a special set of words all beginners should start with. They're words we use most in daily life. Words like I, you, yes, no, this and that. And this is where you should start learning vocab as a beginner. The top 100 core words make up about 50% of everyday conversations. The top 200 core words cover 60 to 70%. If you go to 300, that's 80% of everyday conversations. So if you start with the core words first, instead of learning random words, you'll start understanding everyday conversations sooner than later. Even if you don't understand everything and you can only pick out a few words, you're on the right track. So how do you get started learning the core words? How to get the core 100 words. This part is for people that are using our learning system. With our system, you get the core 100 words for free. Just head to the vocabulary menu on our site and click on 100 most common words. And the way it works is you get all the words up front. Each word comes with a picture, the translation, audio pronunciation, and sample sentences so you can get a feel for it. And this is where you start. All the words are here. So if you're not a member, just sign up for a free lifetime account to get access. Now, how do you actually learn the words? You don't have to memorize them. There are easier ways. The easiest way to learn the core 100 words. The easiest way is with our audio slideshow tool, and it's also free for everyone. You'll find this tool right there with the core 100 words. Just click on View Slideshow, and the audio slideshow will play the words on loop for as long as you want it to, until the words are stuck in your brain. You can switch the translation audio on or off and play it in the background while you're doing something else. If there are certain words you want to focus on later, you can send them to your word bank to review later. You can also pop them into our spaced repetition flashcards to really master them. Just select all words, hit Add All Words, then choose your flashcard deck. But the audio slideshow is the easiest way because you can play the words on loop in the background until you know them in and out. And you can easily start understanding everyday conversations just by starting with the first 100 core words. So if you want to learn the language and get access to these learning tools and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account.
Great work! Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.